Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. I've got a very special guest today whom we tried bringing onto the podcast since the last 6 months. She was really busy. So we somehow found a way to get her in the podcast. That's Lisa for us. Hi, Lisa. Firstly,
Hi.
thank you for coming to the podcast and how are you doing?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, who Lisa is. One of the very young, I think one of the youngest, I would say, VP marketing in a large credit union I know. Firstly, I'm very proud of you, Lisa, that you arrived at this level at a very young age of your life. Very proud, cheering for you
Yes.
because we need more people like us. That's the reason. Selfish thing. Who Lisa is? Lisa is vice president of marketing, mid Florida, based in obviously Florida. She spent almost 10 plus years in GTE before mid Florida. So close to 13 and a half, 14 years of experience in credit unions. So we are like the long lost brothers and sisters who wanted to become journalists, but that never happened. So I'll take a pause, Lisa, if you want to add and do justice to the introduction that I butchered right now for like a minute and 20 seconds.
I think you did a beautiful job. Thank you. That was perfect.
You're too kind. It's okay. Introduction. So Lisa, why don't you talk about maybe your journey? What has been your journey so?
Yeah. So, I mean, you did a really good job recapping it. And so I think my credit union journey is very similar to a lot of people in the credit union space in that I started as a teller in an entry level position and was able to work my way up. So I did a number of things. It was all over the place. So if you looked at it on a map, it looks like it's got chicken pox. So I spent a few years in the retail space. So as I mentioned, as a teller, I also did membership origination and consumer lending. So spent some time doing that. And at the credit union I started at, they looked at their retail branches as community financial centers. And so a lot of the expectation there beyond just being in the branch was investing your time out in the community, right? And so I did a lot of
Sure.
business development for the location I was at and had a knack for it. It was pretty good. And then in turn was invited to move up to corporate where my role then evolved and I was focused on business development as a whole. So not just one location specific, but for the credit union as a whole across 24 locations. So spent some time doing that. And in that department, it was a hybrid of both business development, so going out and cultivating relationships, and then financial education. And so I always say at that point in my career journey is where I really fell in love. And I think some people just drink the Kool-Aid, I think is what they say, and become credit union lifers, right? And so that was that turning point for me during that journey. And then once I spent some time there, was invited over to the marketing team and just been nonstop ever since. So transitioned over to mid-Florida several years ago and just love it here.
I'm sure you love it, but because the way how you talk about what you do right now, it definitely seems like you love your work right now. So great about that. I think you're the very few guests who have launched actually a podcast, right? I mean, credit unions have reached out to me asking, Anurag, how do you do this? So I'm trying to help a couple of credit unions launch their own podcast, just pro bono. So the next question is, you recently launched the Mid Florida Makes Sense podcast, right? So why was the audio the right medium for the mission, right? Why do you think you started the podcast and you want to talk about the podcast?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm very lucky that my credit union looks at financial education, not just like as a service or something we do. Like we really do look at it as a priority and a commitment to that. And so
Sure.
with that said, we're trying to constantly innovate ways that we get to people. And you look at the era that we're in right now and how fast people expect to get stuff, right? We've got Amazon Prime. If I can't get it next day, then I'm on to the next thing. AI, which is a beautiful thing. I search my question, I get my answer. So how do we compete with that? We know people need financial education. How do we get to them? And so audio is a beautiful way to meet people where they're at, right? In real life scenarios. So whether you're driving home from work, you're cleaning the house, you've got your AirPods in, whatever the case may be, trying to find a way that we can meet members where they're at. And so that's really where the whole idea came from. And so I do have to give you kudos. We're still new. We still have our sea legs at it, but there's so much work that goes into it, but it really has been a labor of love.
I mean, it's always great to hear positive feedbacks about podcasts from credit unions because it's a very new channel, but we need to understand the way how an average consumer consumes media nowadays. Another podcast I love is by my friend Andy Mattingly. He is Chief Operating Officer of Forum Credit Union based in Indianapolis. He also does a very good job. I think you guys should, coordinate or talk. I mean, because not a lot of credit unions do podcasts. It's very rare, by the way. You know that, right? It's very rare. So really good. It's a very good venture, Lisa, that you're doing. So wishing you all the best for the podcast. Right. Interesting thing. I mean, not a lot of people know this. So let's talk about this. I mean, in 2025, Mid Florida leaders, right, built around 2,000 birthday boxes for children facing insecurity, basically
Mhm.
food insecurity, with issues around that. So how do you integrate this philanthropic or this human efforts into your actual marketing strategy? Because yeah, I mean, Credit Union is people helping people. That's fantastic, wonderful. That's the reason we are talking, because we believe in supporting each other. But still, you are the marketer, right? I was still, I mean, not everything should be justified to ROI, because that's not the way how we look at the world. But still, how do you integrate all of these into your marketing strategy, and what's your plan for this year?
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely love that you point out that project. It was so rewarding and so fun to do, and one of many, but it really does a beautiful job of representing Mid Florida to its core. But to answer your question, from a marketing perspective, we never look at philanthropic initiatives as a campaign, right? That's the key. We look at it as a culture, right? So these initiatives really are the credit union's rooted in community service. And that message runs through the storytelling that happens on social media, partnerships that we're having out in the community, right? So the goal really is never to highlight the credit union, it's to highlight our employees and the service that we're doing, right? And so when you have a culture, an employee culture that truly genuinely believes in giving back, right? The marketing takes care of itself. So it makes it
Yeah, I mean,
easy for me.
absolutely. I think that's the basic difference of working with credit unions me versus working with the largest of large banks, because you actually have a purpose and a mission for which you're doing. You're not just doing because you need to come fancier or greener in your next sustainability report. You guys don't really care about that. It's about a pure mission that you are serving. So that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure you can relate. So, like, when I came
Yeah,
on board at Mid Florida, I was hearing all the great things. Like, this has happened long before even I came on. I'm like, I never read about any of this. I've never seen it. Like, I'd be screaming it from the rooftops, right? And the common feedback
sure.
is that we don't do it for that. We do it for the right reasons. And it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, wish the world becomes more like credit unions, right? That's the best thing I can wish, coming from working with the
Hmm.
largest of largest organizations, coming to credit unions is what I say. Maybe I also drank the credit union Kool-Aid, and I'm not able to go back working with anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
That's how it is, right? Absolutely. So I mean, this I want to just move on to the next more pointed question, not about the mission and vision, but more on how do you use data? How do you measure successes, right? Because obviously, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I talk about this every single day, that we're not competing against the nearby credit union, which we are not, but we're competing against the large banks, the fintechs, the newer banks of the world, right? And obviously, they are using all possible ways of personalization using data analytics. So, how do you leverage, Lisa, analytics as a whole, data as a whole, right? And ROI matrix to drive innovations at the organization, right? And because you're in Florida, right? I mean, the world wants to fly down to Florida and settle down. It's such a
Yeah.
competitive market. It's not easy.
Yeah, so true. Florida is a wildly competitive financial market for sure. You're spot on with that. And this could be a number of different answers, but what I'll say is that we look at behavior, right? So not assumptions. That's so important. So, what products are members using? What answers are they searching for? At what point in the digital journey is there some friction, right? So looking at all of these things in combination or in concert with the return on investment and making sure that these campaigns are both measurable and impactful, right? That's one part
Yeah,
of it. Very important,
yeah,
right? I think we all understand that. For me, what I think the secret sauce is, I'll give you the recipe in my opinion in one word, and that really is agility. That's the
yeah,
difference there. So numbers don't lie. I say that so often. I'm pretty sure they're gonna like carve that into my tombstone. But
yeah,
understanding that like when the numbers are telling us something's not working, being able to pivot and pivot fast, right? That's the secret sauce. So data brings us clarity, but being willing to iterate when needed, that's really where you have the edge, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, the points that you talked about, this is spot on, right? That's what you need to do. Now, again, getting back to the Florida market, it's very diverse. That's possibly the reason I love Florida. It's so diverse. I mean, there's so group of different ethnicity of people, different culture. It's amazing. It's a culture pot. How do you ensure, Lisa, that your marketing strategy always remains inclusive, or having everyone come into the same platform and feel the same, right? Because again, your neighborhood is very diverse, right? I mean, a simple
Mhm.
campaign that might be works out in New Hampshire or in New York won't work in Florida, because demographics is very different, and that's a very difficult job that you're doing. It's not a blanket strategy that you can apply.
Right, right. Yep. So I think for me, like the biggest responsibility I have as a marketer is to remember that behind all of these member segments, right? All of these audience groups that we're looking at, there's real people, right? They're just real people, like with real stressors, real goals, the whole nine, right? So we
Yeah,
stay human centered with that really by listening first. That's the key, right? We listen to our
sure.
members, we listen to our frontline teams, we're talking to our community partners, and that is utmost importance, right? And then making sure that we're authentically through creative, like representing all of Florida, which you talk to. And then really important for finance specifically is just simplifying that financial language, right? So more people feel comfortable and included with that and not intimidated. That's an important pillar, right? There's so many more, but that's kind of the high level pillars that I focus on when I think of that. And then, understanding that when people feel seen or understood, they start to engage more deeply, and then they trust you, and trust is really where the magic happens. That's when they stick with you.
Yeah, I mean, what you talked about is finding the person behind the name, right? That's the most important thing, because every single person that you're sending a direct mail to, or a digital campaign, to
Mm-hmm.
understand what is the financial need of this person to come and bank with you. I mean, because there's a common word, there's a common phrase that I've heard, and that people talk about, that banking is a chore, right? Let's
Right.
let's let's not become another additional uh, burden for a
Yeah.
prospect or even a member, right? I mean, if you're
Mm.
ticking the boxes, if you're helping them, then only they'll come and bank with you. So talking about, yeah, that's the right way of looking into it. Nice. The next question is, I mean, I'm very passionate about commercial lending, because I feel the potential of commercial lending in credit unions is huge, right? So for everyone, I mean, I might be off the numbers here and there. An average credit union has close to 1% of their book uh, as a part of the commercial lending. So essentially, 1% of the entire book, or 1 to 2% of the entire book, is commercial lending. If I'm not wrong, Lisa, if you're not a CDFI, you can go up to 12%, right? Not more than that, right? If you're a CDFI, you can cross the 12% mark.
Right.
So Mid Florida has done a very good job, right, in terms of being one of the top lenders, commercial lenders or business lenders, whatever you say, right? You want to share some strategies, because that's where a lot of credit unions, one, is struggling. Second, haven't created strategy, and third, they're not a lot of fintechs who offer end-to-end solution from origination to servicing. It's a very rare field, right? And because underwriting is not easy. It's very scattered, for the lack of better words, right? So what is the secret mantra? If I were to ask you, how did you grow the book of business? You being the marketing brain behind this.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think all the finance people, right? They hear this question, their ears are like, getting real big. And I wish so badly that I could toot the marketing horn on this, right? I really do. But the truth is, our commercial lenders, and I say this all the time, they really are second to none. There's this ongoing joke in our leadership team that our commercial lenders just don't need marketing, and in good fun, of course. We love them, but their success is very real, right? And it comes from those deep, long-standing relationships and that level of dedication to being out in the community, which we've kind of talked about, that you just
Mhm.
simply cannot manufacture in a campaign, right? That takes effort, that takes showing up for your local businesses and listening to them and building that trust, right? We'll keep talking about trust because it's just so wildly important, right? So the heart of that success really is our lenders. But where marketing does come into play, where I can toot my horn, is that our role in kind of amplifying that trust, making sure that the wider business community knows who we are and what we do. And that's really where my role comes into play. But it truly is relationship building and kind of walking that talk for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's so glad that a marketer is saying this, that the commercial lenders actually add a lot of value. It's not only marketing driving the top of the funnel and conversion, but the community relationship that they have, that brings in a lot of difference. Otherwise, it's not just marketing. So that's great. Couple of more questions, right? I mean, I want to talk to you almost for the next 1 hour, but in the interest of time, I know you're busy, but couple of last questions. One is, firstly, again, I'm very proud of what you've achieved at a very early stage of your career. So that is great. If I were to ask you, what advice would you share with women aspiring to get into leadership roles, be it in credit unions, outside credit unions? I mean, what's your secret? I mean, what made you arrive at a VP role in the third?
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I kind of talked about this a little bit. I've typically been one of the few women in the room and definitely the youngest for a long period of time. I'm aging out of that though, unfortunately. But with that, all to say, my biggest piece of advice is don't wait to be invited into leadership. You step into it with complete confidence as, woman to woman. And that would be the advice that I would give to them, because I think women often hesitate, right? We want to be 110% that we're ready to go, whereas the rest are, 60% and going in. Like raise your hand, ask the questions, speak up, even if your voice shakes a little bit, and just know that you deserve that place in the room when you're there, right? So that would be my biggest piece of advice. And then, second to that is building a support system is so important. And the beautiful part of that is you get to curate that yourself, right? So, pick peers that you want to connect with that are, creative or have an outlet for you. Find mentors, ask the questions, and build those relationships with people that are going to be honest to you. One of the things that was taught to me very early on that I've carried throughout is that leadership really is not about knowing all the answers, right? It's supporting, having the support around you, and just having the willingness to continuously learn. So I guess those would be the two primary pieces that I would tell another woman.
I think the first one is very, very important. I mean, because even I believe on a single mantra that you'll never be perfect. You have to go and speak up. Be it even speak up to execute. Execution is a key, right? You can try perfecting yourself for the rest of your life, so you'll never be the perfect person that I'm going to talk about, right? So your suggestion, this is gold, by the way, right? All women leaders all aspiring women who are looking or hearing this podcast today, that's table stakes, guys. You have to speak up for yourself. It doesn't matter if your voice is shake. If Lisa can do that, you can do that too, right? And I'm sure if you reach out to her for mentorship, she won't close her doors. She's very open. You can reach out to her on LinkedIn. Might you'll get a delayed response because she's busy, but she will try best to respond to people who needs mentorship.
Thank you.
Absolutely. One last question, Lisa, on since you've been in the movement for almost now 13 plus years, almost 14 years. This year is very interesting, both looking at macro and micro environment, right? And that means it's not easy to, it's not easy. Ease of getting deposits is easier than last year for sure. Things have improved. But what do you think is the future of the movement? There's a lot of massive M&A that's happening. Banks buying credit unions buying banks, credit unions merging among each other. You guys are relatively large. You guys are almost 8 billion, if I'm not wrong, in Florida, right? So from that vantage point, what do you think is the future of the movement, and where do you think are we heading towards?
Yeah, I think we're really entering a very exciting chapter for credit unions. Now more than ever, I think people as a whole are really craving authenticity. They're looking for transparency from institutions, and they want to do business with people that have genuine purpose. And that's exactly what credit unions offer. So from my point of view, like the future is really going to be shaped by two things. Technology, we know that, and how that removes friction. Thinking about the member experience and how we make that intuitive and simple and seamless. And then a deeper return to the community, which they're always looking for. So where financial institutions are actively investing in the people that we serve, kind of those two pillars. And credit unions sit in a beautiful position where they can really move both of those. And I just feel like it's just going to continue to move full steam ahead.
This was great. This was a very, very interesting answer and very thoughtful answer. So Lisa, again, thank you for your time. That too on a midweek, almost end of the day. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your time, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.